So today I'm joined by Michele Gettins. Actually was a previous boss of mine, Chief Marketing Officer at Iamproperty. Pleasure to have you, Michele. I really want to get started with, how did you get into marketing? How did it all begin for you?
Well, it was a bit of an accident, really, because I never intended to go into marketing. My intention was always to go into HR and recruitment. I did a generalist kind of business management and economics degree. So I guess there were multiple routes open to me. But my mum had worked in recruitment all of her life and kind of had helped out on school holidays and stuff, and really enjoyed it. So that's always the route I was going to intend to go down. But as part of my degree, I got to take a year out in business. And I ended up working for a recruitment agency, and they didn't have a marketing team at the time, and they just wanted some support with a few things. They also sponsored a local sports kind of club, and again, they were kind of looking for someone to help organize events and things like that. So I started to get more and more involved in kind of marketing disciplines in areas of marketing, and then I kind of just got the bug from there, really. I kind of made sure that some of my selected modules thereafter were in marketing and kind of around the marketing discipline area, and I guess that I was just had one taste and I was sucked in for life, as they say. I thoroughly enjoy marketing and the discipline of marketing, and it's just fascinating, and there are so many different elements to it. The variety keeps it interesting, constantly learning, and constantly being challenged as a professional as well in the discipline. So it's just so exciting. It's just such an exciting area to be in.
Having worked with you, I can't believe marketing wasn't something that you were always aspiring to.
No, it wasn't ever. But like I said, I think it was have a little taste, and then like I said, I was sucked in for life and just wanted to kind of dive in with both feet and know everything and do everything. And I was lucky enough, actually, early in my career to work for a big kind of Sage UK FTSE 100 business, and actually that allowed me to get such a hugely broad grounding in marketing in the discipline, because they had marketing teams for everything, across kind of different segments of customer bases, across different geographies. So I literally just spent kind of 2 years just embracing it all, and kind of really just learning as much as I could, making sure I studied CIM as well, so that I was actually qualified in the discipline that I'd chosen to kind of have my career in, which I think is hugely important, because it is a science, it's a skill, and I think it's really important that you have the relevant grounding and foundations in kind of whatever career path you choose. But I was lucky enough just to have such a broad exposure to the discipline at an early career stage, and then I think that gave me the best start, really, and I love it still today, and I probably don't ever want to leave the discipline. So I'll probably be doing this until I retire, which is quite nice.
Yeah, that is nice. I imagine there's been so many people to bounce ideas off when you're working at Sage UK.
Yeah, huge. I mean, there was massive marketing teams. Like I said, it's a global business, so across all geographies, kind of B2C, B2B, product, strategy, product marketing, comms, all disciplines accessible, and I was able to work across the majority of them, really, and it allowed me also to see which bits of the discipline I kind of warmed to more or had an affinity with, and I think for me, because marketing is such a vast area, there's lots of things that appeal both to the heart and the head. So kind of the creative side of the discipline, the communication side, kind of is the bit that still gets me really excited, and working with agencies on campaigns and creative executions. But then actually with the head, it's kind of the product and the product strategy and making sure that we're developing value propositions that customers want and that customers need based on insight. So yeah, it's just, I mean, I would encourage anybody to learn more about marketing if they're interested in a career in the discipline. It's just huge. So many different directions that you can go in depending on what you're interested in and your skills and your strengths.
Yeah, a huge amount of areas that it covers, doesn't it? So what does your current role involve as Chief Marketing Officer?
So it's quite a new role for the business, actually, and it's the first time marketing has been represented at board level as well, which is great. Really good for the business and really good for the team. And it kind of just recognises the journey that marketing has been on with that business and the value that they now see in the holistic discipline of marketing, which is now kind of inclusive of product strategy and product management, as well as the more traditional marketing disciplines of product marketing and kind of the broad communications portfolio as well. Within my remit is also customer success. So we take a lead for the business in terms of our customer education, learning, content, any kind of anything that supports customers being successful with the business. We are accountable for our voice of customer programs, our MPS, bringing insight into the business really, which helps then shape the direction that we take for our products and also for our where we put our communications focus efforts as well.
So what do you think drove that value recognition in the company to then bring marketing to board level?
I think there was probably a number of things really. I think it was firstly about having someone in the business who kind of is an expert in the discipline and actually has a voice around the table, has a credible voice, and can encourage the teams to think differently or maybe try different things, and has an opinion that's based on previous successes, and then obviously incrementally making small changes that then prove results for the business as well. And I think once you start to get some quick wins under your belt, once you start to prove that actually what you're doing or what you're saying or what you're trying to implement is making a big difference to consumers, customers, and also the business itself, I think then everyone can come on the journey with you a little bit more. I mean, I think you need a team that's got faith in the people that they've recruited into their marketing team to give them a bit of a license to try new things and do things in a bit of a different way. And when they're asking for investment in X, Y, Z, trusting that they're asking for that for a reason because of the experience that they're bringing to the table. So I feel like the team and I probably have put a lot of trust in me. They've supported me, given me the tools that I need to do the job, whether that's kind of additional members of the team or investment in key areas. And then they've seen the results of doing that. So they do more, and it's a bit of a virtuous circle thereafter, really.
So you kind of briefly touched on it. What's your advice for any aspiring marketeers?
I mean, I guess my advice would be to learn as much about the discipline as you can. Kind of go wide before you go narrow, if you ever do go narrow. Like I said, it's a science. Kind of do the qualification, invest in your professional development, and just try and get as much exposure to all of the different parts of the discipline as you can as early as possible, and focus on really driving results for whichever business that you're in, and making it a core focus to see everything through and understand what you're trying to achieve, and then delivering that, and then success will roll off success in my experience.
So pretty much really being involved from the initial brief all the way through to the end, so you can see all of that process.
Absolutely. And just get involved in a business. I mean, marketing strategy for me is business strategy. And if you're a curious marketeer, then you want to know all aspects of the business, because every part of that business and every touch point with a customer is part of the brand and is part of the marketing team's remit. So just be really interested and curious and ask lots of questions, and just have confidence in yourself as well to understand that actually your remit isn't just to sit in a box and send out emails. It's much broader than that. And you can't really do marketing unless you understand a business and what it's trying to achieve and the market that it's in and the customers that it's serving.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. And actually, it's been a common theme about being curious and asking lots of questions. In the interview in the book, so thank you so much for taking time out to be interviewed in the book. You highlight the importance of getting to know the wants, needs, and desires of customers. Can you share some examples of how you've done this? Because it can be quite a struggle for marketers to know where to start.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think again, it's just about being curious, and it can be as easy as just kind of reaching out to some customers of a business, having a telephone call and asking them some questions, or networking with customers at an event and just being curious and asking questions. Or if you've got a little bit more infrastructure and framework about you, it can be leading on voice of customer programs, so having regular surveys and insight that is automated and kind of triggered based on certain events or certain processes, and really using that data to inform strategy. And I think particularly, I mean, I spent some of my career in FMCG, working for a kind of a baby brand. And one of the things I really learned about marketing in FMCG was how important understanding consumers is, and actively, proactively using consumers and concept tests and just kind of ethnography and observational research, really to get under the skin of consumers and what they're trying to achieve and what problems they have, and therefore what propositions or value propositions would be valuable to them. I think kind of B2C businesses tend to invest a lot more in insight programs than B2B businesses do. I don't want to broadly generalize, but in my experience, that's the case. And I think B2B businesses are potentially missing out on the value that insight and the commitment to insight could bring because of that. There are so many examples where actually over the course of my career, we've listened to consumers, we've developed propositions that answer their problems, we've gone over and above so that we delight as well. And it just leads into business success and results, because you're kind of pushing on an open door if you're giving a customer something that they've asked for because it's a problem that they genuinely have.
You're really delivering on that customer value piece, which is so important, isn't it, to align to those needs and wants. You're delivering value directly to the customer.
Completely, absolutely. It's so important. And that's why I think it's really important for marketeers, and especially young marketeers, to want to get out and speak to customers. It's so easy to just sit in the office, well, now the home office, and kind of just get your head down with what you've got to do. But you always need to take time for looking at that insight. And there is, like I said, there are so many ways to get that insight, but as long as you're getting it in whatever way, shape or form that comes, that you have a touch point with the customers that you serve, with the market that you serve, and that you're acting on what that insight is telling you to improve or innovate.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say about B2B maybe missing out on some of that, because what I've found from experience is actually the sales notes, the sales call notes, talking to prospects. It's like gold dust information about what the pain points are, what the needs are, what the wants are, to drive everything, not just your messaging, but the content, the product development, maybe some features that you might be missing. And it's amazing how many businesses don't, all of these notes are being captured by lots of different teams, but it can inform so much of the business decisions that are being made. Is that something that you've also found?
Completely agree. Yeah, I mean, when I started my career early doors in Sage, I used to just go and listen to the on the phones to the telemarketing teams or the sales teams. Like you said, I think insight and kind of getting customer insight in doesn't need to cost money. It can just be part of general day-to-day practices and about being curious about them. And like I said, just sitting with a salesperson who has those conversations and asking them about their job and what feedback they get. And like you said, there's probably lots of data in businesses that is just not being mined and it's not being used. And actually there's no reason why it shouldn't be.
So in the book, you also gave us access to a brilliant case study and the example from the company that you're working for, Iamproperty, with the campaign that you put live called Smell the Difference. Without giving too much away, because there's lots of detail in the book, can you share some details about the process of developing the ideas behind this marketing campaign and the strategy that drove it?
Yeah, of course, absolutely. So this was a really exciting one, actually, and this is another, I guess, leap of faith that the team at Iamproperty kind of took on the marketing team to deliver something that actually is just not done in our space, really. I mean, the property industry is not necessarily known for pioneering kind of marketing and ways of marketing. It's quite traditional. So to do a PR-led campaign in the way that we did it was quite innovative and, like I said, quite pioneering. So to get the investment to do that was fantastic. And I think really we were crystal clear about what we were trying to achieve, which I think is really, really important, that you start with clear objectives. And our sole objective really was to create some noise with the trade press about the launch of our new compliance product offering. But we knew we really wanted to do that in a way that was different, that stood out, that was quite disruptive, and that would allow us as a supplier to stand out from the competition. Because there are obviously lots of other solutions in the market that do similar things. We did have quite a few USPs, but actually it was more about how do we stand out through the way we execute and communicate our proposition and our messaging, as well as the proposition itself. So we really wanted to do something creative, and I think choosing the right partner was also really important. And we didn't want to do the traditional boring B2B. So we looked for an agency that had consumer experience. And that could help us look at it from a slightly different lens. And we found a really good partner in a business called Bottle PR, who are exceptional at what they do, and they do some amazing PR-led campaigns. And I think what we did with them was we made sure that we looked at insight first of all. So what insight did we have from developing the proposition? What were agents' concerns about compliance and the area that the problem that the proposition was trying to solve? What were the myths and legends? What did the customer believe, but actually we knew to not be true? And how could we put something that was a little bit different in front of them that would make them think a bit differently as well? So we explored all sorts of ideas at the ideation phase. Like I said, a lot of it, all of the ideas were insight led, insight generated, and we settled on the Smell the Difference campaign because we thought it was just it was fun, and I think the business is fun, so we wanted to do something that was a little bit different, a little bit of fun. But like I said, that would have stand out and get the coverage that we wanted, which was the results objective, was getting the press coverage. And the way that we approached it was also about getting multiple different benefits. So we started with an insight piece that we ran into estate agents, those we worked with and those that we didn't work with, again, just to validate the source of the campaign, which was, can agents really trust their senses when spotting money laundering practices? Well, actually, they can't, was the whole point of it. But we just wanted to highlight that in a really fun and quirky way. So Smell the Difference was born. We created fraudulent money, which had a scent. We created clean money, which had a scent. And obviously we asked to smell one and then smell the other. And could you smell the difference? Well, no, you couldn't. So made the point that agents couldn't rely on their senses, and actually they need some sophisticated technology behind them to make sure that they're doing the right things in the right way to identify potential money laundering risks. And obviously our solution presented the solution to that problem. but yeah, it was insight led. We had coverage off the insight. We did then the big experiential activation, which is where we took over some billboards in central London, kind of stuck the money, for want of a better word, to the wall, got people to take money off, got people to smell it and smell the difference, ask them some questions. So we got really good vox pops on the day and some video content that we could use. We invited press down. We invited some agents down as well, that were either using our product or not using our product, and got their views on the subject. So we had some subject matter experts, and then obviously we had the experiential event became then the content for the next part of the release, which was again about the results of the day, what coverage we got, and also what consumers were saying, and just elongating that campaign as much as we could, squeezing the lemon of that campaign to make sure that we got all of the assets out of it. And we created white papers and used that to lead generate. And it was such fun to work with. I mean, we actually created the scent of Laundered Money, which was brilliant. Like, I've never created a scent in my life, but we got the opportunity to do that. And we got little bottles of the scent that we kind of used. We sent some out to press and some key customers that we invited along on the day. And it was just loads of fun. But at the end of the day, it was about meeting the objective for the business. And we absolutely did that. We got the most coverage we probably ever had to that point in the key trade press titles. And the content is just evergreen, and we're still using it today and still promoting it today. And I think whenever you start something with insight, it's just so much more powerful, because press love insight, customers love insight, we love insight. There's so much content you can create from it, that it really did put that front and center. But yeah, I still have the perfume on my desk at home, actually, because it was such a memorable experience.
That's brilliant. A real true multi-channel campaign.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
And such a good way to, like you mentioned, it's a quirky idea, but such a good way for something that seems so obvious that of course you can't smell the difference between the two, but actually highlighting it in that way really demonstrates that this is a flawed process. Like that, this could be so much better, and that's obviously what your service ultimately would deliver. But it's such a great way to just engage not only your wider audience and grow the awareness, but also people working at Iamproperty as well, having that real buzz about the campaign.
Yeah, and everyone who was involved in it, just like we said, we just had lots of fun, and they were really excited, and like nobody in the business had ever been involved in anything like this before. So it just got everyone's full support, and I think it's something we'll talk about internally for a very long time.
I suppose going back to what we were talking about at the very beginning, demonstrates the value of marketing, that campaign.
Absolutely.
So what do you think are the most common pitfalls? So I mentioned 10 and talk about 10 common pitfalls in the book and give examples and ways to overcome them and avoid them. But what do you think are the most common pitfalls a marketer faces, and how can they overcome them?
Oh, goodness, there are so many. There are so
Maybe
many.
top 3.
I mean, I guess I would say the first pitfall is to believe that marketing is just communications. When the majority of people I still speak to today, they think marketing is either just the colouring in department, or they're there to just send out the emails and do the newsletters, or do a bit of social media. Whereas actually that's just fundamentally incorrect. There are 7 P's of marketing. And I think the first pitfall is don't just focus on 1 P. It would be make sure that you get that solid grounding, that you appreciate that discipline is much broader than that, and therefore can add much more broad value to the business than just kind of sending out the communications. And I think that probably is the main pitfall that I believe most marketeers fall into the trap of.
And chasing after those tactics.
Absolutely. Yeah, without the strategy. And again, I guess, is this a pitfall or not? I don't know. But marketing strategy for me is just the business strategy. it's how they market and support that business strategy through using the marketing discipline, and all of those levers that discipline allows us to pull. So again, I don't know whether that's a pitfall, but you don't need to be extra to the business. You are the business. It's about supporting the business through what the marketing discipline and marketing teams can do.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think there is consistently a misalignment or a lack of the business strategy informing the marketing strategy, and then that's where marketing doesn't deliver value in the eyes of the business because it's not aligned to the business strategy. So I think you're completely right on that. So from all of this experience that you've gained, really varied industries as well that you've worked in, what advice would you give your younger self if you were to start out now in marketing?
That's always a hard one, isn't it?
Everyone struggles with this question.
Yeah, I can see why. I guess I would say probably be even more curious than I have been and ask lots more questions. Don't be afraid to take some risks as well, and just try things out and be a bit more experimental. I think sometimes, especially now, we can get so caught up in KPIs and results and kind of analyzing everything to death, really. And that is important, don't get me wrong. But I think sometimes when you're so caught up in data and doing what data tells you, you kind of forget where the magic sometimes comes from, which is about taking a few risks, and trusting that, based on the fact that you've done your groundwork and you understand your market and your customers, that actually sometimes the data might not be telling you the right thing, or it'll be telling you to do the sensible thing, but sometimes doing the non-sensible thing is also potentially game changing. So just don't lose sight of the magic sometimes that you're not going to find in data.
Going back to being curious, asking the questions, why is it this way? What is this insight telling you? Brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolute pleasure to speak to you, Michele. Thank you so much for your time and for the case study and interview in the book as well. Been, really good to just catch up and hear all about the amazing things that you're doing at Iamproperty as well. So thank you so much.
It's my pleasure, Jenna, and huge congratulations on the book, and everything, really. It was a pleasure to work with you, and everybody should buy the book, because this is a lady who knows what she's talking about.
Should buy the book just to hear you say book one more time.
Book. Book. Yes, I am from the northeast of England.
Thanks so much, Michele.
Thanks, Jenna.